All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome to Agile in Color's Share Your Story series. I'm your host for this evening, Nicole Spence-Schoon, and I'm one of the core team members for Agile in Color, along with my teammate, Matt Carson, who is going to be handling the chat for us. So if you have questions, comments that you want to put in the chat, Matt will be taking care of that and making sure that I don't miss any questions for Christina when people post them in the chat. So in the Share Your Story series, we're coming together for this quarterly meetup event to profile various Black Agilists and thought leaders. The goal really here is to tell the stories we don't normally get to hear and to understand each person's Agile journey from a Black Agilist perspective. And we hope that by hearing these stories, our Agile community will be able to identify with the storyteller and visualize their own possibilities. So tonight, we are featuring Christina Thomas, an Agile coach, problem solver, speaker, change agent, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So please, Christina, introduce yourself so we can all learn what makes you uniquely you.
Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for joining. I just want to thank the Agile in Color team. I got the email from Nicole and I was like, what? Who, me? I literally overlooked the email because I thought it was just the event. And then I was like, had to like type back for days going like, I'm so sorry, I'm a bad human being. But no, literally, it's really, really amazing to be here. And I'm all about, sharing with my colleagues and my fellow Black colleagues about, well, what my journey has been like and learning more about your stories. That's what's really, really important. So a little bit about me. I'm Jamaican. I am a twin. I have a twin sister. Because I'm Jamaican, I really like athletics, and I'm not a nice person when athletics is on. I'm sorry, everybody else in every other country when Jamaica is racing you. Otherwise, I'm a good person. So I'll start with that. That's the only disclaimer, like the really, really bad thing. In terms of my Agile career, I think literally for me, Agile just makes sense. And even before there was a label, I would say my approach to working with others and working with teams has always been about one, showing empathy to others in that respect. And, like the major tenets that Agile speaks about, embracing the team, just being vulnerable and working together in that collaborative spirit is something that I've always had. I started in the IT department. And if you're in the IT department, there's always somebody smarter than you. And that really puts things in perspective because there's no point in competing because we're all smart at different things. And once you realize that, then you go, okay, it makes sense to work with the team. It makes sense to collaborate because otherwise, what's the point? You're not going to get to that innovation unless you realize that and you actually kind of listen to people who are smarter than you. And people are smarter about different things, right? And that was just one of the things in my career that I realized from a long time. And it was because I was in the IT department that I realized that. Awesome. So I think that's it for an intro.
Absolutely. That was great. So just backing up a little bit, just tell us a little bit about where you grew up as a kid and your just upbringing.
So I grew up I say Kingston, Jamaica, which is not true, but it's the only thing that people recognize. I grew up in St. Andrew, Jamaica, but it just doesn't have the ring to it. So I grew up in Jamaica with my mom, my dad, and my siblings. There are 4 of us, so 2 girls and 2 older boys. And literally, I can't say there's anything wrong with my childhood. Oh, I can't ride a bicycle. That is something wrong about your childhood. And it is my parents' fault. They were too overprotective, and I wasn't going to be on the road riding my bicycle. So that's the only problem about my childhood. And literally, it was just marked by seeing how hard my parents worked. You know, my parents grew up, so my mom grew up in rural St. Catherine, and my dad was kind of born in St. Thomas, and then he grew up in and around St. Andrews. And literally, I saw how hard they worked to ensure that all of their kids went to university and had a better life than they had. And honestly, that just fills me with gratitude. And I think it's one of those things that you kind of look at, you know, when you get older, you realize that the sacrifices that people have made for you, you know, to become the person who you are today. And that literally just makes me feel very, you know, just happy and a sense of pride that I have that kind of legacy. I have parents who wanted to just provide and support their kids to be the best that they could be. And that's pretty much it. I went to school in Jamaica, which is tons of fun. There was always sunshine. There was always a lot of kind of playing, rough playing. My sister was a tomboy. I was a little bit of a girly girl. But you know, other
Yes.
than that, it was really cool.
Yes, I can relate since I was born in Jamaica. I didn't grow up there my whole life, but I went to high school and understand the expectations of everybody's going to university. This is really not a conversation. It's happening.
Pretty much.
But all for the good, So I get it. How did you get started in IT? Like what really sparked your interest?
Literally, what sparked my interest was common sense. I ended up in university. I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I was like, okay, computer science, it makes sense. I could work in any industry. That's what I'm going to do. I would like to say I would like to say it was something that I dreamed of, but it wasn't. It was just the practical thing of you're going to get a degree. It has to be something practical because all Caribbean parents want you to do a practical degree. And the practical degree was computer science. So that's how I ended up in computer science. But the reason why I stayed is one, it's very dynamic. So if you start off in IT, you realize that it's basically a touch point for every industry. You know, so if I found another niche that I wanted to move to, I could have moved there. I started off in the telecoms industry and things were always changing. And I had no reason to leave the telco industry until I left Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But other than that, IT is just an exciting arena and an area to be in. And as I get older, I realize that I am becoming slightly out of touch with NFTs and all of those things going on, but I'll try to figure it out at some point.
Yeah, I don't get the NFTs, but it's fine. It's fine. So tell me a little bit about when you moved away to Jamaica, because I know you spent time in UK.
Yeah, so literally I spent 10 years in London. And before that, I was working in Jamaica for all of the time in the telecom industry. And honestly, I can't say that, I don't know if I'd quite say it was a culture shock because I wanted something completely different. So my parents, they met in London and got married. So literally, you know, like for me, London is like a love story kind of road into everything. Right. Because that's, you know, they wouldn't have met if they stayed in Jamaica. So they met in London. And I moved to London kind of going, I want to experience different things. And it was totally amazing because there are just so many different people from all walks of life. You know, London is super exciting for that. And the opportunity when I got there to actually to get a job, like when I moved there, I got a job maybe a month, I'd say. I started a month into when I got there, and I
Mhm,
started off as a consultant and a consultant into different telco companies that are over there.
mhm,
And it was really great because literally it doesn't matter where you move to, once you're doing good work and once you realize that when you are engaging and working with other people, you have to one, show up, and you have to deliver value. And deliver value is just from the point of whether you are an SME in a particular area, so that's subject matter expert in a particular area, or whether you are facilitating a process. Those things and skills will help you no matter which country you move to. And literally, that was validating when I moved there, that, oh, hey, here's this little island girl from Jamaica. I
mhm.
moved and I started in a job and I'm doing good work. And then I just was able to continue moving.
Awesome. That's great. All right, so let us go more into present time. Um, so tell me, what about Agile coaching do you find most rewarding?
Hmm. So what I will say on a whole, so like specifically for me, agile coaching, and I'm going to take out the coaching part. I'm just going to talk about what the agile community and all of, let's say, whatever different frameworks or whatever it is that you're starting with.
Mhm,
What agile is to me is that it just makes sense. I would like to say that my career has all been fun and games, but it hasn't. I've literally been in employment where I didn't feel valued. So even though you are providing value in a sense, sometimes you can get stuck in a corner because
mhm,
people go, oh, you're good enough at that job, and you can sit there quietly and work. And so when I say that you're doing valuable work, it's you should know that what you're doing is valuable and you're doing it to the best of your ability and you're meeting whatever goals or objectives that are set. But I'm talking about being valued as a human in the room. And sometimes I was kind of sitting there diligently working and kind of going, oh, somebody will see what a good job I'm doing.
mhm,
And
mhm.
they're going to pat me on the back and they're going to
Right.
be my mentor and they're going to tell me what I need to do. And I found that that didn't happen.
Mhm,
So as a consequence of that, I had to find my voice in terms of going, okay, how am I going to show up for myself? And two, how am I going to find other opportunities and also get people, to kind of be advocates for me and to also find allies. So for me, what I like about Agile and Agile coaching is just the focus on the teams and, the kind of global listening that they talk about, seeing everything that's happening in a system and how can you help that system to evolve. I'm going to say that you can't help every system to evolve, but as long as you have the kind of emotional intelligence to assess when you're in that system, the different actors that are at play, you are a little bit in terms of understanding the game because it all is a game, this thing that we call life and work. It's just you need to figure out how to play. And what I
mhm.
found is that adult coaching is helping me to figure out how to play it better because if I knew then what I know now,
Right.
I've done much better.
Yeah. So yeah, I can relate to that, that feeling or viewpoint of, diligently working and, I'll be recognized. And it's not unique to you. I know a lot of Black professionals who, grew up with this. It's meritocracy. So my work will do the speaking for me, which is obviously not the
Mhm.
case at all times.
Thank you for saying that. And I mean, because I've been thinking about that a lot, and it is an ideal that we kind of strive for, that it's all about meritocracy, but it's not. It's about nepotism and cronyism. And once you understand that, you're going to kind of get ahead in the game. You have to figure out how to communicate. You have to figure out how to be effective in finding the people who will want to help you, because the story that everybody has been told about meritocracy, it's a little bit of a lie.
Mhm, mhm. I think it's more of an aspiration.
Yeah, it is. It's a
than a
kind of
reality.
Shangri-La.
Right. Euphoria, utopia, all of those things. So I know we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but what would you say has been your biggest challenge in your Agile journey, in the Agile space?
I think the biggest, it's not really a blocker, but it took me a while to realize it, that, I talk about finding your voice, but when I started in the community, and I started in the sense of, yeah, I did my CSM certificate, and then I started going to lots of meetups. And what I found was that at a lot of the meetups, it can be a little bit like, oh, there are 10 million books you need to read. And it's like, oh,
Yes.
we're gonna fight over this framework. And I kind of found myself like, okay, this is interesting, but why? Why is there kind of like all of this noise about this thing being bad, this thing being good, and this is what you have to do. These are all the steps. You need to kind of go all the way to trainer.
Right.
And I'm literally like, no. So that was a kind of problem that I had in the beginning, of filtering out the noise and really figuring out what I wanted for myself, and acknowledging that my voice was valuable and my ideas were valuable to the community. Because when you join a new community, you kind of think that, oh, you need to follow all of the thought leaders and what everybody else is saying. And I think you should do that. I think you should go to all of the talks, but I think you should also come up with your own ideas and thoughts about things. And yeah, that's the only thing that's kind of kept me going, finding my voice and realizing that, one, hey, it's valuable, and it's okay, you were a project manager. Although, I went to some meetups and it was like, oh my God, project managers, they don't care about their people.
Yeah. Well, some of the best people were project managers before Lisa Atkins was,
Exactly.
we all have the opportunity to evolve. But I can understand that. But I think the most striking thing you said there is really finding your voice and acknowledging that's as equally as important as everybody else's. That's a big deal to get to that place.
Totally. It takes a lot of work.
Yes.
But anybody can do it. You just need to start, focus on your values and figure out what it is that you really want. I had thought about something a couple of weeks about, potential, and the whole thing about a lot of us only see our potential when somebody else recognizes it. But you have to look internally and go, what do I think I can become? And you define it. It's literally your journey. And right. You should be the one realizing what your potential is and then setting your goals accordingly.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a pause there just to check with Matt to see if anybody has any questions, or, if anybody has questions, feel free to raise your hand, Zoom raise hand, or just shout it out. We'll take it in any form that it comes. So I don't think I saw anything in the chat as of yet. So,
Nope.
okay, just
Yeah.
keep an eye on it. All right, cool. So on that vein of, finding your voice, is there anything else that you would advise up and coming Black Agilists in their Agile journey?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, apart from finding your voice, you need to network, you need to go out and you need to introduce yourself to people. So I attended meetups, but I would have gotten nowhere in the sense of finding community if I didn't send those invites after I went to a session.
Right.
I mean, you literally have to. So you know what? Let me not say literally. I will tell you the story that I did not believe that you could network authentically. I always kind of thought that, I saw other people doing it who I worked with, when I was stuck in my corner working. And I thought, oh, look at them. They're just going around being like a social butterfly, but it's all pretend. They're just going here, there, and everywhere, and everybody likes them. But there is a way that you can be authentic, literally just be curious. Send that invite out and ask persons questions and just be very open and honest about what it is that you want on your journey. And the truth of the matter is you may find people who are not receptive, but there are lots of people, once you send a request out to have a meetup, they will have time and they will extend themselves and go, hey, this is what I did. You might want to join this group and you will hear more about what's going on in the Agile community. And that has totally helped me because based on that, I have met so many great people. And I literally have had the opportunity of giving different talks. And that has helped me on my journey to be a lot more confident in terms of what my Agile career will look like.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think we have to even be, in general, more intentional now, since we are all living in this virtual space, is to be intentional about making those connections. So
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to learn to do that as well because, I had the benefit of just being in the offices and being in meetups in person and seeing people. So now it's definitely, I've opened my eyes up to being in that intentional space about making those connections. So I can relate. So let's think about what is the one thing, it can be one, it could be many, things that you do regularly that makes you a better Agilist?
The main thing for me is self-care. You're not going to be able to help a team or anybody for that matter if you are not emotionally healthy. And when I say emotionally healthy, we're all going around with lots of stresses from work, lots of stresses from your life. And we kind of just go, hey, guess what? It's all about the game. It's all about the hustle. And you have to keep going no matter what. But you have to be emotionally healthy to be an Agile coach. Because when you need to turn up for your team and you need to be there to be globally listening, seeing and picking up everything that's happening in a system, you will not be able to do it if you are not emotionally sound on that day. And if at any point in time you feel that you're not healthy and in the right space, you need to be completely open when you go to that office area, workspace, whoever is on your team, and kind of go, hey, I might need time because of this. Because that's the only way you're going to build, let's say, vulnerability in a team. If you are completely open and honest when you are not feeling your strongest, and your team will respect you for that. So I would say, yeah, you have to focus on your emotional health. And also you need to focus on being kind. I call it being a good human being. I mean, literally,
Right. Right.
literally, people kind of turn up to work and they kind of like, oh, that person seems a little bit
Mhm.
not happy over in that corner, but I'm just gonna kind of overlook it, and I'm not gonna say anything, and I'm not gonna genuinely ask if they're okay. So I'd say be a good human being. And of
Yeah,
course, you need to know all of the frameworks and all of those other stuff, and you need to be able to teach it in 10 minutes,
right. 10
you
minutes.
know, 10 minutes. But however, I will say that there are lots of people who have been being agile all of their lives, and they've never called themselves an agile coach,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
So it just depends on the kind of person you want to show up as in the workplace.
Yeah. It makes me think of, when you're on a plane and they're giving you all the safety instructions and about putting on your mask first
Mm-hmm.
before helping others. It's like, really, that's what I'll keep in my mind now. It's to really put your mask on first because you can't save anybody else until you do that. So I can understand that completely. Um, so let's talk a little bit about like organizations and companies. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you think tech companies or companies in general can do to create equity for Black and people of color agilists to accelerate their career path or simply just not hinder their career path?
Uh, I mean, I thought about this, and I really have to say it really depends on if you're in an organization that is actually equitable. There are a lot of people who are doing this kind of performative inclusion,
Mhm.
where at certain points of the year you kind of go, hey, we care about what this community is saying and what that community is saying. But for the rest of the year, all of the persons from those communities kind of know that that's not really the case. The only way it's gonna be equitable is if you, or should I say we, if we actually have leaders who care about them and care about it not from the kind of social presence perspective.
Mm.
When I think about in terms of my career and my story from my sister, in terms of equity, she's had colleagues and white male colleagues who they've shared what their salary information was.
How
And
generous.
that, exactly, and that has helped her to get equity. Because when you know that you are, let's say, in a space and you're from the Caribbean and you don't know what you should be
Mhm.
asking for, if you have an ally who is willing to share that kind of information for you, then you now start kind of knowing how the game is played and it becomes equitable. But for organizations, they really need to take a look at themselves and go, are we really, really focused on inclusion? Do we really have teams where every voice is being heard? And I'm not quite sure how else we will get there unless we have leaders who really focus on that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of leaders, they have to focus on profit and what the
Mhm.
board says, and they don't necessarily have time to focus on that culture. So Black Agilists will get equity if we are actually in organizations where the culture actually reflects inclusion and it really is inclusive. But it's a really, really big change, and I'm not quite sure how to get there.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing challenge because I have seen my fair share of the Black squares and all of the social media things that people do to show support, but don't make any actual change within the organization.
Mhm.
But, you know, until people realize that this diversity and inclusion is what makes their organization greater and will make their organization more successful, you know, I think we'll continue to have that struggle. Or might make baby steps, but it'll be a longer road to get there. And I know you touched a little bit on this in terms of the Agile community itself. But what would you say are those persisting barriers to entry to the Agile community for Agilists of color?
So literally, I believe there is no barrier to entry for Agilists of color to the community, in the sense that some people might say that Agile is a little bit of a certification racket. Some people might say that.
Mhm.
But I think the barriers to entry are very low because, you know, all of the certifications are worldwide now.
Mhm.
So there's no barrier to entry in terms of you getting a certification. But if you're talking about barriers to entry in terms of it being reflective
Mhm.
of the persons who are considered thought leaders
Mhm.
in that space, it's still a quite smaller number in terms of presence of Black Agilists who are represented at all of these really big Agile conferences,
Mhm.
you know, and the only thing that the only thing that I can say is that, you know, honestly, the Agile community is just reflective of the wider system.
Mhm.
And I think we try to kind of espouse that the Agile community is completely different from the wider global system.
Mhm.
But I think in terms of the persons who are thought leaders, it still shows that it's remarkably the same
Right.
to external to the Agile community, that you have a smaller handful of people of color in terms of like the thought leader space in the
Right.
Agile community. I don't, I, I don't say that it's a barrier to entry, but in terms of, I don't think it is, there's nobody thinking about it. There's
Mhm.
nobody deliberately thinking that, oh, we're keeping these voices out of the space.
Mhm.
I think it's just, it's not necessarily considered.
Mm.
If you get what I say,
Yeah.
it's more of a, I go to this space, all of the people kind of look like me, and all of the people who I mentor kind of look like me,
Mhm.
and it just continues.
Yeah. So it's a similarity bias, right?
Yeah, it's, you know, I like people who kind of grew up in the same country as me or have the kind of same background. They kind of get my jokes. I
Mhm.
can see their potential.
Yeah. Yeah. But what do you think we can do to
I think what we need
change
to do
that?
is we need to keep on showing up in these spaces, and we need to keep one being vocal, and we need to find allies, and we need to not shy away from the kind of difficult conversations in the sense that if I go, you know, I kind of find it interesting that women in Agile, all of them are kind of sectioned into this small little talking point at a certain time,
Mhm.
but overall,
Right.
it's still only like a handful of
Right.
women who
Mhm.
get to speak, you know, and unless we are, this kind of whole thing about being open and
Mhm.
courageous and being the change that you want to see in the world that the adult community speaks about,
Yeah.
we don't talk a lot about the same issues that we see
Yeah.
everywhere else because it's still here in the agile community.
Mhm. Indeed. Indeed. I I can totally relate to that about the Agile community being more reflective of what's happening outside of it than being something different. And I think the first thing that I witnessed that was kind of refreshing was a regional conference here called Agile DC. They elected to do a raffle drawing for who was going to speak, which was, it's the luck of the draw. It's like you had to meet the talks had to meet some minimum criteria and stuff, and then everything else was left up to chance, which I was like, okay. I mean, I think they're just at least trying to do something. I'm not saying it's necessarily the most successful, but at least they're experimenting.
I have to say though, because I went to an open space event last weekend, Scrum Beyond Software, and I really do think that open space is probably the way forward in terms of, getting all of the voices out there. Because, the fact that you turn up and if you want to host and talk about something, you can, it removes that kind of, hey, let me send in an application. And
right.
if people don't know your name, then you're not going to get through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the open space, the unconference as it's called, is definitely a very popular, has become more and more popular. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that works for the big conferences. So, because there are all these obligations, I will say, that they have to abide by. And so, it's always about money, really.
It's all about the game.
They're like, it's all about, that's truly part of the game too. I can see it for sure. All right. Just check here. See if there's anything else. Any thoughts? Anybody else has? I saw an I agree from was it? Oh, Anne from Anne.
From Anne. Yeah.
Yes, she was agreeing, giving that 100%. All right. So let's think about looking outwards into the community at folks. And so the actual people, who are, I guess, your biggest influences or agilists that you're really into and is doing amazing things right now?
So I literally, I'm going to be honest, I literally have tons of people who I listen to, and I take bits and pieces and I go, okay, I really like this and I like that. I don't have like one agilist who I'm like, oh, they're the most perfect agilist in the world. In terms of Black Agilists, I know that in terms of April Jefferson, she's doing a lot of cool stuff. Dr. Dave, who everybody knows here, I really like. I went to a talk I had mentioned at the beginning. I saw Pamela Dukes speak like a month ago, and it was really cool. And she's been in the agile space for a long time, and it was the first time I had been in the same meetup as her, so that's awesome. Yeah. And I mentioned Cassandra Johnson, who I met at the Agile for Humanity conference. I don't know much about whatever she's doing. She's in the product world, but all I know is that when we spoke, I literally was like, I'd really like to know more about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you are obviously into a lot more things than I am, so I'll definitely give it to you to identify all of these various people, because I feel like I've heard of Pamela's name before, but I have not been in her space to hear her and all of those things. So
very cool, like everything in her story, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put it on the list. We should just have you like create a list for us and say, okay, where are the people we're supposed to check out now. So of all of the, conferences and people and articles, that you read, and meetups, are there any that you would recommend, like for people who are new in the Agile space? Are there any things that you would really recommend, or virtual meetups that they
So,
attend?
so what I would say, so for me, I would recommend the Lisa Atkins book, Coaching Agile Teams, because I
Mhm.
like it basically saying that anybody can be an Agile coach, and you kind of go through the checklist of the things that you do. Are you giving
Right.
back to the community? So I would recommend that to anybody in terms of as a starting point going, hey, before I do a certification in Agile coaching, what I want to know, you can pick up that book, and I think it's great.
Mhm.
Um, there is the book Game Storming, which I find pretty cool. It's Dave Gray and I think Sunny Brown.
Yes.
I hope I hope those are the names. But game storming, it's really cool in terms of getting ideas for facilitating and innovative. I think it says game storming for innovation, and I can't remember the exact title. So I'd say that, and literally, I would also just say kind of search for books about facilitation, and you realize that in terms of being a great agile coach or a scrum master or whatever it is that you want to do in kind of the agile space,
Mhm.
you literally need to know how to facilitate a good workshop or a good meeting. And there's just a lot of information out there. You can also look at the liberating structures and figuring out how to use lib structures
Mhm.
for great meetings. And once you start with that, you literally are building the foundation of what's going to be in your toolkit.
Right.
And just be curious. I mean, try things. And if it doesn't work, then try something else. In terms of being, I'm not going to say agile coach, in
Mhm.
terms of anything on your career journey, it's literally all about being iterative.
Mhm.
And you're not going to be your best always, but on a particular day when you show up, that's literally the best you could be that day. But then every other day after that, you can be better. And
Yeah.
that's gonna move you to the point where you're like, wow, you can have a retrospective of your career and realized how far you've come.
Yeah. Mm. So I know you also talked about meetups as well.
Mm.
Have there been any particular meetup groups that have been
Oh, wow.
pretty consistently good for you, like in terms of community
Do I
topics,
need to go
whatever?
search my meetup list?
How many meetup? No, the question is, how many meetup groups are you a part of? That's probably the better question.
Wow. I'm probably a part of like maybe 20 different meetups. Yeah. And I literally just kind of see the email come in and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to that one.
Right.
Um, so Agile in Color, yay.
Yay.
There is ooh, there's a meetup that I go, they're based in Berlin. So they have Berlin in their name.
Probably
And
a few.
there's the Bay Area Agile Leadership Network. I go to that one too.
Okay.
Um, and I feel kind of bad for anybody who watches this after and I don't remember their meetups.
It's fine. There are so
So
many, like, I mean, since the pandemic, the world has opened up literally. And so you could go to, you're no longer restricted to your local meetups. You could be attending anyone in the world if the time zone works for you.
but what I will say, the fun part about it, especially because I started going to a lot during the pandemic, And it's just so exciting when you kind of go to a meetup when you have no idea what it's about. And literally you go like, what in the world is going on here? So I remember I went to a meetup when they were doing constellations and Michael Spade was talking. And I
Mhm.
was completely new to all of this. And I was literally there like, what the hell is going on? I was like, what are they? Why are they talking about? They're feeling this and they're moving this space. And this is what the constellation feels like. And I was like literally confused, going like, okay, but it's super interesting because you can go to meetups, be completely confused. And then as you go further along, you kind of go, oh, this is what they're talking about.
Mm.
Oh, they're talking about systems and how they kind of, the different people in the systems kind of constellate. And eventually it makes sense. And you kind of become like, oh my God, this is kind of freaky. And then if you're on my sister's side, she's like, this is all a little bit too kumbaya for her. And I'm like, okay, I know, I understand.
Yeah, there can be some people who are like, this is very woo woo.
Yeah.
Be like, you know, that's it's fair. It's fair. But I guess it's really understanding the whys behind everything for that kind of helps you get to the deeper meaning in it. So it's not as kumbaya as you think it is. There is a purpose and a meaning, and it's
Exactly.
usually just really about people. So I get it. I totally get it. All right. Well, we're coming down to the last little bit. Again, I know Matt put out there in case anybody had any questions. I'm like, I have basically two more, and then it can be a free for all. um, so forward looking,
Mhm.
what are you currently striving for, or what goals do you have right now?
So my current goal is to start my company and to use everything that I've learned so far in the agile space to create an environment where people won't want to leave.
Mhm.
Um, it's just kind of this little bit of a dream in the sense that if I can create a space where I would have been happy to be in as a 20-year-old,
Right.
that's what I'm kind of striving towards. I'm not necessarily limiting myself in terms of what my company will be doing. And I'm not necessarily sure that I'm going to be labeling myself completely as just agile related,
Mhm.
So that's currently the forward focus and enjoying life really.
Mhm. True. Life is short, as we were just talking about earlier, because I can't believe it's the end of September and people are already
Exactly.
advertising Christmas stuff on TV. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Not ready for that. Okay. So slow down, enjoy life. Absolutely. So the last thing I will say is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want everyone to know about you or about your experience or aspirations?
What I would say doesn't matter what I say. What matters is what you want. I'm going to stop saying literally. I kind of feel like an American. I'm sorry. But it's about finding what makes you happy. Um, you can strive for the ideal of getting a label of agile coach, scrum master, whatever it is. But if you focus on the work that you're doing and how you're showing up in the world, and if you have people who genuinely like you and think you're a good human being, I think that's I think that's kind of enough. But
Yeah.
also but also just doing good, meaningful work. If you can
Yeah.
get up in the morning and go, I've gone into the office, I got into like the state of flow and got stuff done for like a certain period of time, but then you can get back to enjoying your life,
Mhm.
then that's really what it's all about. And I think, especially now with everything that has happened in the pandemic, we all need to really focus on what I consider the really important things
Mhm.
in terms of what is your legacy, what you're going to leave afterwards if you're no longer here. Because certainly it's not going to be about if you were the best agile coach ever. No.
Right.
It's about the people who will remember you, and you can use the agile skills and the learnings and things that to improve yourself, to have a better quality of life, and to also improve the life of others around you, your friends and your family. So that's what I'd say. Focus on that and focus on finding your why. You need to be living your values. And it's tough. And sometimes you might get lost,
Mhm.
but always kind of circle back to what is important to you.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, thank you so much, Christina. I
Thank you for
will,
inviting me.
yes, open up the floor if anybody has any questions or comments, you know, kudos, any like yes +1 on what you said. Here's your opportunity before we close for the night. I will give everybody a space to chime in. You can come off mute. Anything
I do
you
have a
have to say.
question.
Yes.
Yeah, so Christina, it's been a
Yes,
long
Christina.
time since we chatted.
It's been forever.
Yeah, it has been. What are the biggest problems you're seeing? I don't know if it's post-pandemic or at any point. What are the biggest challenges you're coming across now as an agile coach?
So I think the biggest challenge really is I don't like this belief that everything is back to normal. I believe that there are lots of people who've gone through a lot of difficult times, and this debate about, oh, we're more effective being in the office, I think that's one of the major big things that I'm having. And for me, if we all kind of like take a step back and look at what we went through those 2 years, it's really, really difficult for people to still be showing up, and some are still struggling. And I think that's like the thing that we'll all need to focus on going forward as an agile coach. But I think overall for me in the agile community, we're going to have to get to grips with the question of, are we actually delivering on the value that we espoused that the agile community was going to bring? The whole delivering things faster, all of that. And there are lots of transformations that, they keep on starting and they keep on not going anywhere. And there are lots of agile coaches who are being given the boot. So we need to figure out whether they're going to be rebranding or what, because at some point the tools are really, really effective, but I'm just not sure whether we've completely gotten to the right sponsors and engagement at the exec level where they have become believers.
That's true. Thanks, Brianna.
Sure. Thank you for taking my question.
No worries. Thank you for being here. It's really good to see
you. Awesome. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions?
I think Terrell had a question. A first-time attendee, and I'm transitioning to Agile, and would really appreciate any advice on how to make this an effective transition. Okay, so Terrell, effective transition. You've already started. You're here at a meetup, and look at everybody else on this call. Yep. Send them LinkedIn invites and try and pick their brains and go from there. Then you can also look at in terms of what should they say is the role that you want to move towards, and find somebody who's either in a Scrum Master, in an Agile coach role, reach out, have a chat with them, and they'll give you recommendations of, hey, this is what I did. And when you get those recommendations, go, okay, time to evaluate. Is this what I want to do? How do I want to kind of curate the certifications that I'm going to do? Because you also totally can do this without doing certifications if you're in the right space and you are working someplace where they're receptive to you giving them new ideas and going, this is how we can do it. And that will give you experience on your CV, and you can put that down on your CV and go from there to move to something else. So it's really just about networking, networking, networking. And then afterwards focusing and defining what your goals are, and you go from there.
Indeed. Yes, Terrell, happy to connect. I'll start it. I'll drop my LinkedIn in there.
Okay, let me copy
more,
mine.
More than happy to connect, chat anytime. And because I am all about, you know, my version of networking is building community. That's what I like to call it, because it feels a little more natural because you have something in common with folks, you know,
Exactly.
And so you're speaking a language you both understand and, you know, can help each other. So, you know.
And when you say about community, Nicole, it's also super important to find people who are going to be your cheerleaders. You know, so when you're starting, you're going to feel not so confident. And then you're going to need somebody or people there to kind of go, you can totally do this.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a no-brainer. There are tons of other people who the only reason why they're doing it is because they took the chance. They literally said, yeah, I want to do this. I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And so what if it doesn't work out for like the first role? You're going to get better.
Indeed. And Terrell, you can find Agile in Color as well. And we have and offer help. You know, if you're looking for mentorship, we can partner you with a mentor. If you're looking to speak, we have Matt, who's in charge of Colorful Voices, to help for you, to help you build a talk. You know, Christina done it. You know, we have people who have done it. So, you know, we're here to definitely support whatever direction you want to go. So you're basically to say you're not alone. So
exactly. And guess what? No matter what happens, even if you kind of start on shaky ground and like you do a talk and you're like, oh my God, it was crap. You're going to get so much better. You just need to start talking.
Yeah. That's what meetup groups are great for, because meetup groups are always looking for speakers. So, you know.
Exactly. You get to practice.
You definitely get to practice there.
And they're looking for people to go, oh, this is what I tried. And, you know, this is what I want to talk about. And it totally works.
Yeah. So it's just the beginning. And I'll give a shout out to Khadija. Wave Khadija. Khadija is also part of the Agile in Color core team. So we are here. Like I said, we're here to support you in whatever you want to do, because we know everyone has a voice that they can share, and their thoughts and opinions and experiences we all can share.
And what I say is like also look for, you know, so I have a broader community, but also in terms of like for the Black Agilists, also look out for other Black Agilists who you can mentor and work with along the way, because that's the only way you're going to have more visible faces being out there and doing it.
So again, I will say thank you so much, Christina, for sharing your story with us, your experiences, your path, your learnings, and we really appreciate you spending this time with us.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to everyone who was here. It was fun, even though I talked all this time.
It's okay. It's called Share Your Story for a reason. So We're expecting you to talk most of the time anyway. All right, everyone, that's it for me. Thank you. Thank you very much for attending. We will probably have our next Share Your Story sometime in November. So look out for our posts in Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the social medias. I don't do that. CP handles all the social medias. He'll advertise it out there. You'll see it one way or another for when our next Share Your Story is coming up. All right.
Thank you,
Good night,
everyone.
good night,
I'll
everyone.
see you on LinkedIn world.
Yes, see you on LinkedIn. Take care.
Later. Bye.
Good night,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.